Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior NBA writer. He was there for Game 4. At least there was a rumored Game 4, Eastern Conference Finals last night. Heat and the Celtics. He's been on site for the entire series, and Chris joins us this morning. At what point do you think Eric Spoelstra said to his starters, guys, come on over here and sit with me the rest of the night?
Well, I think the first sign of panic was probably when Duncan Robinson was inserted into the game early. I mean, Duncan Robinson has kind of been the, break glass in case of emergency guy in these playoffs. He hasn't had a meaningful role, and there he was, I think, early in the second quarter with this Miami Heat offense, unable to come up with anything in that first quarter. I mean, Dan, they had 1 point through the first 8 minutes of that game. If not for Victor Oladipo, who just rejoined that team in the final weeks of the regular season, going off in the first half, like they would have been single digits. Like nothing was working for that team offensively. So I think Eric Spoelstra probably had a hankering something was bad early in that second quarter.
But, we have these different, these highs and lows with both teams where you're going to go, boy, they're unbelievable. Then you'll go, boy, they're unbelievable. I don't know what to expect. I said this from the outset. I thought Miami was going to win in 7. Now you go back to Miami. I don't know who's healthy. I don't know what to expect. How do you kind of handicap this game?
Well, that's the biggest question, right? Who's going to play? Marcus Smart, obviously that ankle injury is significant. He was limping down the hallway at the Garden last night before the game. So is 36 hours or whatever it's going to be before he's deemed available going to be enough? He's got to take a longish plane flight down there. Is that going to do him any good? Robert Williams was great through 3 quarters in Game 4, but he left the game in the third and was noticeably limping, and he's been in and out of the lineup as well. Those are 2 big factors in all this. Tyler Hero on the other side, is he going to play? Now, like all things being equal, Dan, I think Boston's the better team. I think they're frankly the much better team in some ways.
I do too.
They lost Game 3 not because they were outplayed, because they kept turning the ball over. I mean, they had 24 turnovers in Game 3. That led to 33 points from Miami. Miami had 29 deflections in that game. That was a playoff high, for the year. Boston was just sloppy. So when they take care of the basketball, like they did in Game 4, where they had 3 turnovers in the first half, 11 overall, they're just the better team. So if the Celtics can get, Rob Williams, Marcus Smart back on the floor and keep the turnovers low, they're going to win in Miami.
What do you expect tonight from Golden State and Dallas?
I don't know if Dallas has answers, for Golden State at this point. The Warriors just seem to have their number. They're a much more patient offensive team than any of the ones that the Mavericks have faced in these playoffs. Defensively, they've done a really nice job overall on Luka Doncic. I think Andrew Wiggins had a good series overall. This is just kind of this Mavericks team ceiling. Like they've reached it, going up against Golden State with that kind of firepower, that kind of defensive versatility. This is kind of what shows Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd, and the rest of the organization how far they are away. Because as great as Luka is, you can't beat a team on Golden State's level with just Luka and a bunch of shooters. You've got to add something else to make you more dangerous.
But what is that in the offseason? What is Dallas capable of adding to that roster?
I don't know. I don't know what they have some trade pieces that might be of appeal. And you can also say another full training camp with Spencer Dinwiddie might be useful for that team. But look, they're going to have to pay Jalen Brunson to bring him back. And other than that, they don't have a lot of marketable assets that teams would clamor for. I mean, nobody's coming running for Tim Hardaway Jr., to trade for him. So,
but is Luka going to be somebody that players want to play with?
Yeah, absolutely. But players want money more, and they want, long-term high-value contracts more. I mean, he's going to be able to draw in free agents, no question about that. But ultimately, I think what's going to come down to in the years to come is how Dallas drafts. I mean, look at these series right now. I mean, Golden State, we know their draft track record over the years with Draymond and Clay and guys that weren't necessarily blue chip prospects, including Steph, by the way. But look at Boston right now. I mean, they're in this series in part because Grant Williams, who I think was 22nd in his draft, is playing excellent. Rob Williams was like 27th, if I'm not mistaken. Peyton Pritchard has played well at times during these playoffs. Derek White was not a sexy midseason acquisition. He was brilliant in the first quarter last night. So it's going to come down to these diamonds in the rough that the Mavericks can kind of mine and add to that group around Luka.
Yeah, I just wonder, like Zach LaVine's going to be out there. I don't know if Rudy Gobert is going to be available. Luka is, I hate making the comparison, but there's a James Harden feel to him that he's ball dominant. I'm talking about Houston's James Harden. And, he makes others better. You got to be patient with him because you're not quite sure, is he going to throw me the ball, not going to throw me the ball? And that can be frustrating, I would think, for players wanting to play or not wanting to play with a ball dominant guard.
Yeah. And look, the guys you mentioned, I don't think they're the answer. I mean, Zach LaVine, he'd be a scary contract this offseason because of the injuries he's had, and he's going to want max money. Rudy Gobert doesn't really do anything for you. The Mavericks just beat up on Rudy Gobert with Maxi Kleber, playing the 5 spot in that series. I'd look, you mentioned Harden. He did have his best team success with another ball dominant guard playing alongside him. I mean, his couple of years with Chris Paul were the most successful team years of James Harden's career at Houston. So just like Harden, I think Luka can play with that type of player. The question is that type of player someone you add to the front court? Is it someone in the 4-5 slot where they are a little one-dimensional offensively? Is Spencer Dinwiddie the guy? I mean, Dinwiddie was great for that team since being acquired from Washington at midseason. Is he have another full training camp and a full season? Does he become even better? It's tricky. There's no question about it. But again, I think you're seeing the Mavericks ceiling with this point. They're capable of getting to this point, but getting past it, I think, is going to be difficult.
Talking to Chris Mannix, senior writer for Sports Illustrated, covering the Eastern Conference. Your reaction when Juwan Howard passed on the opportunity to interview for the Lakers job?
I mean, it's for multiple reasons, right? Like Juwan Howard, probably not only doesn't want to step into that mess, he also has his kids in Ann Arbor. So I think there's a duality to it in a way, but it is a mess that not a lot of coaches are eager to jump into. I mean, what are we talking about with the Lakers? What are the Lakers going to look like 2 years from now? Is LeBron going to be there? Is Anthony Davis going to be there? Are they going to be in the full scale rebuild early on? I mean, there's just too many questions. And even if you think the Lakers are going to remain intact for the next 3 years, how good is that team? Like, what is the ceiling? What can a coach come in and do? Frank Vogel was a championship coach. He led them to a title just a couple of years ago. Is another coach going to come in and be a difference maker with that group? I mean, Terry Stotts is a fine coach. He's more offensive oriented than defense. Is he going to fix the defense? I think Darvin Ham deserves an opportunity to be a head coach, but is he going to be the guy that brings all that together? It's just such a combustible situation that unless you are going to staggeringly overpay the head coach of that team, which it doesn't sound like the Lakers are willing to do. They're not going to do for a head coach what Minnesota just did for Tim Conley, the new GM out there, and giving him $8 million per year. They're not going to do that in LA right now. So unless they're willing to do that, I don't know what kind of coach you're going to get.
And if the reports are correct that you have to make Russell Westbrook work in this system with the Lakers, I don't know how you make him work. Do I think if LeBron and AD can get you into the playoffs, I don't know what Russell Westbrook's role is. Like, to make him work, how about you make some shots? That would be a start, but I don't know how you can get rid of him, get out from underneath that.
The Laker coaching staff, I was hearing late last year, talked to Russell Westbrook about kind of making the transition, turning the corner on one phase of his career and going to the next, whether it is becoming a sixth man or whether it is becoming more of a spot up shooter. And how it was explained to me was just like falling on deaf ears. Like, Russ is still going to be Russ out there. He is still going to play his way. Now, you may be able to make an accommodation for that if you tell him from day one, you're the sixth man. You're coming off the bench. You're playing 25, 30 minutes per game. You're doing it against second unit guys. And look, if you're playing great down the stretch, we'll probably leave you in the fourth quarter. Otherwise, you're coming off the floor in favor of a more complete two-way type of player. That's the only conversation I would have with Russell Westbrook if I knew he was coming back, is that you are going to be a sixth man. And Dan, you and I both know that can extend his career. Like Russell Westbrook can probably play 3 or 4 more years as a sixth man. He still has that level of talent in him. If he still thinks he's the MVP, if he still thinks he should play 35 minutes per game, that's just not going to work.
I said it from the outset. I would have brought him off the bench last year when he got there and just had that energy and then just let him go. Yep. But when I have him with LeBron and AD when they were healthy, I don't – your offense is different. When LeBron and AD are on the floor, it's different if you have Russ in there. If Russ is there and, one of those guys is subbed out, then I feel like Russ can work a little bit better under those circumstances.
Well, LeBron and AD, like this is not, breaking news, but their best lineup is the two of them with 3 shooters around them, with defensive-minded players around them. And maybe if you want to appease AD, like one big man who can play a chunk of minutes at the 5, so he's not banging at that position with his body anymore. So I don't believe there's going to be an epiphany with Russell Westbrook. Yeah. I think they're going to come to training camp. He's going to want to be the starter. The new head coach is probably going to make him the starter. And we're going to be right back on this hamster wheel once again, where Russ, is playing hard out there, but is going to the rim, is causing turnovers, is not fitting alongside LeBron and AD. I don't see what the solution is with this mix. You're not going to trade LeBron. Doesn't seem like you're going to trade AD. You're going to be able to kind of fill in the holes around them a little bit with a new roster, a new group of minimum contract players, but you're going to have the same old problems no matter what coach is coaching that team.
Yeah, and I give you credit. You said this from the outset last year. You knew this was not going to work. Chris, thanks for joining us. Safe travels to Miami.
Save that seat. Save that one. Save that.
Oh, we weren't rolling on that.
Not rolling.
No, I nailed that one. I nailed that one.
I didn't record that.
No. I'm recording here.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Right. I'm saving it for my own archives.
All right. That's Chris Mannix, senior writer for Sports Illustrated.